watching us online. The topic of the next press conference is the first results of the work of the first Ukrainian-Polish Forum of Historians. The speakers are Volodymyr Vyatrovych, head of Ukrainian Institute of National Memory, and Paweł Ukielski, the deputy head of the Institute of National Memory of the Republic of Poland. Good evening, esteemed journalists, those who are watching us online. In fact, this briefing is very important for us because we would like to inform you about the first results of the beginning of work of Ukrainian-Polish Forum of Historians. One of the problems in relations between Ukraine and Poland in the sphere of national memory is a certain asymmetry of memory. Ukrainians do not know, do not remember many things which are obvious and very important for Polish, and vice versa. There are many issues which every Ukrainian knows and which are unknown for our neighbors, for Polish. That asymmetry of memory very often is the reason of many mutual accusations, misunderstandings, and very often politicians of different are using that, so that our tragedies, which were the tragedies of the past, so that they stop destructively affect the current situation. It is important to depoliticize these issues of the past, and in depolitization of that, could be done best by historians, not politicians. The instrument of overcoming the asymmetry of memory, first of all, is the professional dialogue between historians, basically understanding that both institutes of national memory, Ukrainian and Polish, as the highest governmental structures which are authorized by the countries, started work to restore the dialogue on complicated relations between Ukrainians and Polish, the dialogue at the level of historians, the dialogue on the hottest part of our past, 1939-1947. For that, both institutions initiated creation of Ukrainian-Polish Forum of Historians, which includes the experts on the problems of Ukrainian and Polish past of the 20th century. The dialogue that started 2 days ago is not a political dialogue, it's a professional dialogue. Very famous specialists from both sides are involved into it. Our task is to mutually find the truth, truth based on archives which we historians have. That is especially important for Ukrainian historians, taking into account the events taking place in archives of Ukraine, the law and openness of archives of Soviet special services, which allows to use the new massive materials which has never been used by researchers in Ukraine and abroad. That allows to look at many issues of this conflict past of Ukraine and Poland anew. Now, talking about assessment of this difficult past, first of all, we hear political statements on Volyn tragedy, on forceful deportation of Ukrainians from the territory of Poland, on bloody events in Podlashina and Volynshina. The dialogue of historians that we started a few days ago has to shift the main center of this dialogue towards historians. We are sure that we will be able to hear each other. We are sure that these meetings will be important and fruitful. even if we fail to convince each other in our understanding. There will be some pages of history which will be assessed by us differently. But for us it is important that we hear each other, and that's the main task of the forum that we started. I'm sure that historians have to teach the society, and one of the major tragical lessons of Polish-Ukrainian opposition is the conclusion that these are events that should never happen in the future. And for that, we need to talk about that. We, historians who have knowledge, who have instruments for that. Now, I would like to invite my colleague, Vice President of the Polish Institute of National Remembrance, Mr. Paweł Ukielski, who will tell you about the communique of our first Ukrainian-Polish Forum. Thank you, Mr. Director, for our joint meeting and for the last 3 days. The communique has the information which you will be able to read in the communique, but I would like to personally present some very important agreements reached yesterday and today. And the Polish and Ukrainian Institute of National Memory, after 7 years interval, restored the mutual dialogue. During the first meeting, we discussed the foundations for cooperation so that we can cooperate smoothly and without any problems. We had 12 participants of the forum, 6 from each side, plus 2 secretaries that had only purely technical assignments. The forum has 2 co-chairpersons. From Ukrainian side, that is Professor Yuri Shapoval, and from Polish, Professor Volodymyr Remembrance. The parties agreed that the subject of discussion will be events of 1939-1947. The forum will hold meetings twice a year, once in Ukraine, once in Poland, in spring and in autumn. Every of these meetings will have 2 topics, and for each topic we will prepare 2 referates, one prepared by Ukrainian historian, another one by Polish historian. Będzie to marzec i październik We have established the time of meeting for the next year, March and October next year. And during March meeting in Poland, the main topic will be Polish and Ukrainian underground. We checked it starting from 1939, during the Second World War. Instead, then in October, there will be the most complicated topic, which is anti-Polish action of 1943. You will find more details in the press release, but I would like to add a few words from myself and on behalf of the Institute of National Memory of Republic of Poland. I would first of all like to thank our hosts, as well as all the participants of the first meeting of the forum. And the atmosphere, the scientific atmosphere of that intellectual discussion was very good and was going on in a very constructive and friendly atmosphere. In the beginning, we are at in the beginning of the way, but what we have succeeded to do in the third days shows that we will be able to move forward, and it allows us to see where we are going. At the official opening of the discussion, there was a very good moment in the discussion. Because the modern times, contemporary times, do not divide between Polish and Ukrainian people. In Poland, there is a lot of solidarity with the Ukrainian people who are fighting for the right to select their own road, who's fighting for freedom and territorial integrity of the country. And for that, we will be also discussing, we need to discuss very, I believe it is a good moment to discuss very complicated topics, because this is the most favorable atmosphere that we have now. And I can say, I'm sure, because of these 3 days spent together, that what we are able to do depends on us, and I'm sure that our forum will achieve the results which will be satisfactory for both sides. Any questions? If you have any questions, you're welcome. Please introduce yourself. Tatiana Chikaeva, Tony's TV channel. I understand there was the first meeting held What was discussed there? What have you agreed on? Tell us about first presentations. The first meetings were dedicated, first of all, to developing the methodology of the work of the forum. We paid most attention to that, and we mentioned that in our communique. Also, we considered two first topics, introductory topics. It's about the review of the modern Polish research. The presenter was Jan Pisilewski, and from Ukrainian side it was about inventory of the problems of this period, and Mr. Zashkilnyak was the presenter from Ukrainian side. We were discussing what has been researched and what topics are to be researched more, and based on that we identified the topics which will be discussed during our forum with the participation of historians who are participants of the forum. Another thing, forum has only 12 historians. All of them are specialists on this topic, but we understand that this is very deep and wide topic, and we decided that we will attract additional experts, historians, to prepare some of the topics which refer to 1939-1947. Our task is not just to discuss between ourselves. We want to start a wider scientific discussion where more than 12 historians will participate. Any other questions? Юрій Рудницький. Зеркало тижня. Why have you selected 1939-1947? Because before the war, between the wars, there are some other issues, like pacification of Eastern Halichina. On the other hand, it's the killing by Ukrainian underground of some activists of Rzecz Pospolita, Tadeusz Golovka, the person who was supporting Ukrainian-Polish mutual understanding. Second, I would like to ask, I remember how during joint press conference of Mr. Vyatrovych and the director of the Institute of National Memory of Poland, Łukasz Kamiński, it was about one of the projects putting together the joint book of memory of victims of Ukrainian-Polish conflict. Did you discuss that during these days of work? And how will that dialogue be developing to implement that very project? Forum of Historians is the forum of cooperation of our institutions. It does not cover all the cooperation. It's one of the forms of cooperation. We understand that there are different topics which we could touch upon more than what was happening between 1939 and 1947. But this is the time where we believe there are more controversies within this period of time, and that's why we concentrate our attention on that. And these are the questions where we have most to say, and we would like to clarify most. In these historical discussions, historical reports, there could be no they cannot be limited only to these dates, 1939, 1947. The discussions or reports undoubtedly will be considering also certain genesis of the events taking place in these years. At the same time, we are convinced that limiting the topic to this time frame will be useful, because otherwise this could threaten by that the topic will be too wide and we will not be concentrated on specific cases. The forum will become the stimulus for other meetings between Ukrainian and Polish historians, during which other issues will be raised. Talking about the second part of your question on the Book of Memory, we have several projects. One of them is one that you mentioned. Also, in the future, we will be setting up the project where we will be organizing some documentary collections, but these are our next steps. Our first step will be discussion of specific topics of the period 1939-1947, and I would like to support Paweł and say that despite we limited to 39-47, but that does not mean that we will not discuss the events that were happening before the conflict and after the conflict. There will be discussions and reports on that as well. Thank you, Vladimir. Any other questions, clarifications? If not, then I would like to thank you for coming, and see you again.